Hey y'all, hope you're doing good. So welcome to my channel. I wanted to make a formal video and just kind of give you a little insight into a little bit about me and what the channel is going to be about. So my name is Hannah. I am in my mid-40s. I'm divorced and I live in a wonderful community. I love to travel and basically I have woken up to the darker side of things in the world. And I basically feel compelled, I feel called to share a little bit of what I've learned on my journey. No specifics, but just general lessons, with you all, so that hopefully I can encourage you along your path. And that's my intention. So just to give you an idea of the things that have influenced me, I'll share some of my favorite books and authors. So my very favorite book I have right in front of me right now, and I've lost the cover, but it's Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And I have read this book 3 times, and it is a really good book to sum up what my position is on the journey of life when you get to the place where you're waking up to manipulation. Because what happens is you feel like you lose yourself during the process. This can be a manipulative marriage that you may have gone through. It may have been just some type of a group that you got caught up into, a social group, a church group, any kind of organization. It could be manipulative family. You may have grown up in a manipulative situation, but what happens is we tend to lose ourselves. And as a part of that, we get disconnected from our intuition and our instincts. And that can have very detrimental effects on us, on our well-being, on our ability to trust our own logic and reasoning. So that's just a tiny, tiny touch of the effects of manipulation and control. And so this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, talks about reconnecting with that, what she calls wild part of ourselves. And basically it's the part of us that it's our inner compass, our inner guiding light, our intuition, our gut, however you want to call it. And it's a beautiful book. I highly recommend it, even for men. I absolutely think it's valuable. And she is so unique in the way that she writes, because she shares a lot of stories that are very old and they have been passed down. She calls herself a cantadora, meaning a storyteller, but an oral storyteller. And so a lot of these stories have been passed down through the ages via, the old way of life. If you think of just an elder sitting around with the youth in a tribe, and the stories are passed along that way. Sometimes there's ceremonies, sometimes it's just simply a story. But her book is incredible and very, very different, and so I highly recommend it. Other books that I love are anything by Wayne Dyer. I've read several of his books. I love to look into the psychology of Carl Jung, or Jung. I've heard it pronounced different ways. Another book that I love is Be Here Now. It's really incredible. And just any kind of a book that's going to expand your perception and hopefully therefore lead you to more revelations and more wisdom. And everyone is welcome here, regardless of your beliefs, but I will be quoting a lot from the Bible, the Christian Bible. So one of my favorite verses is, wisdom is the principal thing, and with all you're getting, get understanding. And all of this that I'm sharing with you, all these books, and ultimately the perspectives that are contained within these books and the wisdom within these books, and there's many, many, many more that I'll share, throughout time on my channel over time. The underlying connecting factor here, okay, would be that we on our journey, and another thing that's really cool to study is called The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, and that'll be another big theme on my channel. But the underlying message here is that life can throw us all over the place on our journey, and we can find ourselves lost many times and confused and not knowing who to trust, having a hard time trusting ourselves. And it can even have literal effects on our cognition, our cognitive processes. You may have been quicker in the past, but going through psychological manipulation can cause you to stumble so many times that because you're questioning yourself, even as you're having your own thoughts within your mind, you're questioning yourself along the way so much that you're stumbling so much it can become a new way of life. It can rewire your brain in that way, and that's hard, that's sad, and it can take a while to kind of get that going again and everything reconnected again. And yes, I think that nutrition and exercise and everything matters. I absolutely believe in the holistic view of health, and I actually have a history of all kind of different jobs I've had, but as far as a career, I was an elementary art school teacher for 7 years, and I have a strong background in art. I did graphic design and photography for a while, wedding photography, and now I'm just very much into art for fun, painting, and all kind of different arts and crafts. But my focus when I was in my program in college to be certified officially to teach was the whole child approach, and it's just kind of common sense, really. And whether you label it, you want to throw a label at it or not, I think that sometimes we get to splitting hairs and just get a little bit crazy and out there with wanting to label everything, and it can cause more confusion than clarity at times. But then other times it can be very helpful, to have something pinpointed, a particular definition, that someone has identified and built a structure around mentally. And then we can relate that to our own experiences and then therefore make more sense of them. And so they can be very helpful. And you're going to find that along your journey, I have anyway, that it's hard to be in a particular position one way or the other anymore, because as you expand your awareness, you're going to see all sides of things. And that's hard because a lot of times when you're, wanting to connect with people or make new friends or whatever, a lot of people tend to be hard set on particular positions, whether it's politics or religion or whatever it is, and just opinions in general. And if you can't meet them there, being hard set in that particular position, then it's like you can't really relate to them. It's almost like they need that reinforcement, that validation. And that's what drives a lot of people to want to connect with others. And so it kind of, in the Bible, it's talked about, or it's explained as being set apart and to be in the world but not of it. And it kind of starts to feel that way. It doesn't mean that you can't have friends, you can't socialize or anything like that, but you're just going to see this difference in your journey. And you can probably look back on your own path too and remember when, your mindset wasn't so expanded. You couldn't see all angles of things, like maybe you can now. And so, we'll do a lot of expansive contemplation. We will anchor ourselves in logic. We will use books and music and movies and concepts and philosophy and religion as talking points, and hopefully it will give you some things to think about. It will get the wheels turning in your mind and just encourage you and inspire you to take something that maybe sparked your interest, in my videos. Take that and go and do your own research or pray about it or meditate on it or whatever your practice is, right? So that's essentially the essence of my channel. And I really hope that you enjoy it. So I'm going to share a little excerpt here from my favorite book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And on page 276, I don't know if the page number changes if it goes from a hardcover to a soft cover, but I've got the hardcover here, copy 276. It says, it's talking about women that are having dark dreams, okay? And it says, but most often they are dreams of women who are drying out. She calls it drying out. A lot of metaphorical examples here. Who are not giving care to the instinctual side of their lives, who steal from themselves, deprive the creative function, and sometimes make no effort to help themselves, or even work very hard to ignore the call back to the water. So that's just a tiny, tiny taste of her style of writing. And if you're like me, you'll find that her creative approach in this book is going to be able to reach into the depths of your spirit, your soul, your heart, more so than just a bullet point type, very logical type of book, okay? There's something about creative expression that I think pulls from the collective subconscious, whether you believe that or not, right? And so, or the collective unconscious rather. And then on the other page here, and I'm no expert, but I still hope you find value. So, and I love to hear your thoughts, whatever you feel called to share. Page 277, this is the section called Hearing the Old Ones Call. What is that cry over the sea? And this reminds me, of course, of the Frozen movies. You're going to start to see as you do research into old myths and fairy tales and stories like what she represents or she brings to us in this book. You're going to find these commonalities running throughout time, and it's just super cool. So I'm reminded of the Frozen movies here where Elsa's hearing that call far away, right? What is that cry over the sea? This voice on the wind that calls the child from his bed and out into the night is similar to a kind of night dream that comes into a dreamer's awareness as a disembodied voice and nothing more. This is one of the most powerful dreams a dreamer can dream. Whatever is said by this voice in the dream is considered a direct transmission from the soul. And so, yeah, it says, it is said that disembodied voice dreams may occur at any time, but particularly when a soul is in distress. Then the deep self cuts to the chase, so to speak. Bang, a woman's soul speaks, and it tells us what comes next. And so it's, again, just an incredible book. I've only had one time that I really remember where I was waking up literally in the morning. It was just kind of where you're in between that dream state and the waking state. And I feel like a kid. I've got my camera way up high. I had this voice. I heard this voice. And I'm not a person who hears voices or anything like that. But this is, as I was waking up, it was sort of dreamlike, like what she's describing. But I heard this voice that said, "It's too late." It was kind of a whisper. "It's too late." And it really caught my attention. It super, super caught my attention, okay? And the reason is, prior to that, for the weeks following up to that, many weeks, I'm talking maybe 5 or 6 weeks, I don't really remember, this has been years ago, I was being woken up early in the morning with information, or what some might describe as a download, okay? In other words, it felt like it was coming from what I like to call the numinous, the spiritual realm. And I will admit that instead of being obedient and getting up and writing or typing this out, who knows, it could have been a book. It could have just been a book right there being given to me. But I was lazy. And I didn't get out of bed. And so that morning when I heard that, it's too late. Yeah, it really got my attention. And then it stopped. I never had any more of that being woken up with a transmission or whatever you want to call it. It was gone. And so it felt heavy on my spirit, like a door had been closed. And it was just hard. And so, but that was very early in my journey. And, you know, you can believe that you are pretty secure or strong, rooted, grounded in a certain belief system, a religion. And then life can prove to you that there's so much more. And that's a big part of the journey too. And so I've grown and experienced so much more since that time. But, you know, now I don't receive that kind of, I've never had that again. Now, sometimes I can sit down and, you know, with the Bible or any kind of a book and just do a little bit of reading and have the intention, or either directly ask, you know, what I call the Heavenly Father for some inspiration for a revelation or whatnot. And it will be, something will come together in my mind. It's like I'll get just exactly what I need from that point in time. And I'll share a really cool little testimony. When I was a kid, I was holding my Bible and I had it closed, and I prayed and I asked God for a verse when I opened the Bible to tell me what I should do when I grow up in terms of like a career or job, right? And when I opened the Bible and I just flipped it open one time and I put my finger down, my finger was exactly on the verse that was related to that. And to check it, you know, years later, I'm dating myself how old I am, but years later I checked, you know, what's the best Bible verse for this question? And it gave me the verse that my finger landed on, and I'll drop that in the description. Essentially it says, whatsoever you do, in other words, anything that you do it as unto God, you know, or do it with all your might or your heart and your strength, but it's supposed to be done with that kind of a conviction, you know, as unto God. And so, and there's more, you know, supportive verses around that. And so, yeah, it was really cool. And that's the kind of things that I still receive nowadays. Maybe not quite so immediate. I have to search around a little bit more, and I have to, you know, pray and put, you know, ideas together and everything. But a lot of us describe this as being led on our journey. And so that's basically what I wanted to share today. I have another really cool story to share with you all, since it's around the Christmas season when I'm going to post this, around the holidays, and it's related to that, and it's a pretty cool testimony. So I'll share that in another video very, very soon, maybe even later today or tomorrow. And so thank you for coming along to hear the message. I would love to hear your thoughts if you feel called to share them. And I hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you again very soon.